Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. It has been about a month since I have been home for my study abroad, and I am now in my bedroom at home in Kentucky, and I've been really enjoying this month of no screen time and just kind of enjoying my family and my friends. I missed them a lot while I was gone, and so I thought I'm ready to be back making videos. I'm about to leave for my Disney college program. I leave in 2 weeks from today, and I'm very excited. But today I wanted to talk about my study abroad and just kind of give an overall reflection of it. I wanted to give tips. I know a lot of my friends are planning a study abroad soon, and I wanted to share my experience, things I regret and things I wish I could do over again because they are really fun. So grab some tea, I'll try not to spill mine, and let's get into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about is just like a reflection of my overall study abroad. So I am just going to talk about my expectations that I had and where they met or where they failed. So before I studied abroad, I knew some people who were studying abroad in Italy about a year before I left, and that's what really inspired me to go, and so I chose to go to London. First of all, I did study abroad with my boyfriend. A lot of people have been asking that. They think that he just was on a very extended vacation, but he was studying abroad in Reading. Anyways, I did study abroad with him, and we planned to do that because at his school he goes to, he was actually required to study abroad for a scholarship that he had, and so I did not want to spend that amount of time away from him, and I found out that I could study abroad for free, so I did it. So when I started planning my study abroad, I thought that I would have the time of my life and everything would be so different and it would be nothing like normal school. And I was wrong. So I saw some people who were studying abroad about a year before me, and they were watching Netflix and they were procrastinating on assignments and doing things that you do at a normal school, and I was just like, I cannot believe they're doing that. They're in a different country right now. They should be going everywhere. They should have all their assignments done so they could have more time for fun, and Netflix should not even be a thing in their mind because they have all this world at their fingertips and they're wasting it. And that was a really dumb thing of me to think, because when you're living somewhere, you're gonna do your normal things. You need some sort of normalcy, you need rest, you need to relax, and also things cost money, and I guess I didn't really think about that. And like, yeah, you can walk places and you can go sit in coffee shops, but you still have to pay for the coffee, and the walking, sometimes you've seen it all. So whenever I got to London, I spent about 2 weeks of traveling non-stop and just going around and visiting London, being a very touristy person with my friends that I made there. But about a month in, I started binge watching Netflix, and I spent a lot of my free time taking naps, and I did not do my assignments until like the night before they were due, and then I would spend a whole day where I could have had free time doing an assignment. And that's just kind of how I work in general with college, and so I thought that whenever I was in London things would be different, and they were not. I guess I could have made them different, but I should not have gone to the study abroad with expectations that I would somehow become a better person or a better student, because I procrastinated and was lazy just the same as I am here in Kentucky. Now, all that is not to say that you definitely can't make the most of your study abroad and you can't explore and see all these great things and have something fun to do every single day, because I made sure that I did something different every day. I didn't have any days where I just sat in my room all day. I did make sure to go out and at least like walk to Whole Foods or do something that like isn't part of my normal life here in Kentucky. So I will say that I did make an effort to do those things, but I definitely learned very quickly that study abroad is still school, and I still had assignments to do, and I still did not have an unlimited budget to go wherever I wanted to go. Overall, my study abroad was amazing, and I would not change it for the world, and I'm really glad that I did it. But there were some things a part of it that I did not expect, and some things that I wish I could do differently. And I just don't want people to think that I lived all this highlights reel that you see on Instagram and in my vlogs. There were times where I was upset. There were times where I had depression. There were times where I felt very anxious and I did not want to go anywhere. And so like, just because you're in a different part of the world doesn't mean your struggles are things that you have that you deal with on a normal basis at home don't follow you there. So I'm going to get into explaining some of those things and also the great parts of my study abroad that I think other people should use, some tips and tricks and some websites that I used and just ways to help planning. I love organization, I love planning, and so that was really fun for me to kind of get to do that a lot while I was studying abroad. So the first thing I want to talk about is budgeting. So I ended up taking $5,000 with me for my study abroad for food and travel. Now I did this by saving a lot of money. I knew I was going to be studying abroad about a year and a half before I actually left, so I made it a point to save all the money that I possibly could from all the jobs that I was working at my home university. And then I ended up also taking out a loan that I am still paying back. But I got to do what I wanted to do, so I think it was worth it. But for budgeting, so with $5,000, that is equal to about 3,000 pounds, a little bit less than 3,000 pounds depending on the exchange rate at the time. During my last month of the program, the exchange rate did go down. It was usually 1.3, but my last program it was 1.27, which saved actually quite a bit of money. It was like $10 a week-ish that it saved, so that was really nice. But with budgeting, so the way I planned my initial budget was $2,500 for food and $2,500 for travel. I love traveling, and so I wanted to be able to do as many travel excursions as I wanted, as my heart desired. And I also really love food, and I wanted to be able to explore all of the London cafes and brunch places that my heart desired also. But the way I did my budget in the beginning was not good. I'm going to explain how I did it, and then I'm going to explain how you should do it, or a better way to do it. You don't have to follow my ideas, but a better way to do it. So in the beginning, I took out my travel money, which was fine, and so I ended up spending only $2,300 on travel, which gave me $200 to play with if I needed them, and that was very exciting. I was like, wow, this is a win. I have saved money, so I get to put it towards more food. Guys, that was a bad idea. I should have saved that money and set it out so I would have some kind of money to go home with me, instead of coming home with having $0 in my bank account and having to ask my mom for $10 to be Venmoed to me on the day of travel so that I could buy something to eat in the airport. But in the beginning, my food budget was the part that really got me. I ended up having a budget of spending $10 a day weekdays on lunch, and then spending $30 a weekend day on anything, because my program paid for me to have breakfast and dinner Monday through Friday, and then I had to pay for my lunches and pay for my weekend meals. Now I had the option to buy meals at my cafeteria, but the food was pretty gross. So I did not want to eat there ever, but I ate there for my breakfast and dinner because I had to. I was not going to be able to afford to eat regular food for breakfast and dinner. So in the beginning of my program, I really stuck to that budget, and some days I went over $10 because some days the exchange rate was different, and so usually it was £7 to make $10, and some days it was £5 to make $10, and I just didn't care and kept with the £7 idea. And so that $200 that I had left over for my travel quickly was gone because it went into my overage with food budget. I also didn't budget in like thinking about travel. It was £2.50 to go. That's a lie. It's £2.40 for me to travel anywhere on the tube for one way. One nice thing is on the tube, after you get to 680 or 630, depending on what zones you're going through in the day, it does cut off. So once you've traveled 3 times in the day, that's it, and you won't be spending any more money. And so I made use of that a lot of days, especially in the beginning when I was being a tourist. I would travel 5 or 6 places in the day, and I would only pay for the first 3. And that was really nice. But I didn't really put that in my budget with the travel versus the food, and so I spent a lot of money on getting around places because, unlike I thought, you cannot actually walk everywhere in London things are pretty far apart. So I traveled a lot using the tube and the bus system, and I really enjoyed the tube and the bus system, but I really did not enjoy paying for them. The buses, I will say though, are much better because they're only £1.50 and you can use them for an hour and not have to pay again. So if you get on and then you get off and then you get your errands done or whatever, and then you can hop back on, you don't have to pay the second time as long as it hasn't been an hour since your first swipe. So that was a really good hint and something I didn't learn until about a month into my program. And once I learned it, buddy, me and those buses, I knew those routes really well. Anyways, so my travel and food budget went away pretty quickly, and then my last month of the program I realized there was a much better way for me to be going about paying for things. I realized I did not need lunch every day because some days I wasn't even hungry and I was like, oh well, I'll just get lunch just in case I get hungry later. Girl, you're not gonna get hungry later. Dinner's in 3 hours. But I now know that. But my last month of the program, the budgeting that I did was I took money, so I knew what I had left in my bank account, and I divided that up by the number of weeks that I had left. And so let's say, I don't really know how much money I had left whenever I decided to do this, but what I ended up doing was I had about $150 per week that I could use, and that would go towards travel, that would go towards food, it would go towards buying souvenirs if I needed to buy anything, and then buying coffee, and it went towards everything. And so that's what I had, and so if I didn't have the money, I didn't get to buy it, and that was a much smarter way. So what I did with the actual like paying for things was I had this card called the TravelX card, and it was a contactless card, which we don't have that here in America, and I wish we did because it's very easy to use. But basically in Europe, if you pay for something that's less than 30 pounds or 30 euros, you can use a contactless, which is just a card you tap and then you move it, and it's like a really fast way to check out. It's like the chip, but way faster and safer. I'm not really sure how it's safer, but they say it is. Anyways, I used my contactless card, and basically I loaded money onto it every week, and so once that card did not work anymore, once it didn't have any money left on it, I just didn't get to buy anything else. And that worked out really well for me, to have like two separate cards. So it's kind of like having two separate bank accounts, so like once one ran out, like the other one doesn't get to refill it until it's time on Sunday to refill. So that's what I would recommend doing. If I were you, I would take your initial travel away budget out of your overall budget, and then I would break down how many weeks you're going to be abroad and set out like, hey, I want to go home and still have $200 in my bank account so that I can like live during winter break before I start my job up again, or whatever it is for you. That's what I should have done. I have $12 right now. But anyways, I would set out money to say like this money does not get touched, and then I would break down how many weeks I have and divide the rest of my remaining money into that. And so maybe you end up having $200, maybe you only get $75. Whatever it is, you can make it work. There were a lot of things that I bought that I really didn't need to buy, and yeah, they were fun, but like looking over, like they weren't that big of a deal. They weren't that important to me. And maybe I shouldn't have spent my money on those things, but since I thought I had the money, I spent it. But if you know you don't have it, you're not going to spend it, which is really nice. So next thing I want to talk about is my travel tips, and there are a couple of websites that I used religiously whenever I was planning my travel. Something that I did was I looked at prices for flights and hotel rooms and activities that I wanted to do before I even left for my study abroad, and I will say that the flight prices and the hotel rooms changed. So all those ideas that I had in the beginning didn't really work out, and it was kind of a waste of my time, so I don't really recommend doing that. You can maybe get an idea, but don't spend hours and hours researching because it's all going to change once you get there. So what I recommend for travel is I used a couple of websites. There was Skyscanner, which was what I used to find flights, but I also used a couple of other things to find flights. And I didn't always fly when I was in Europe. I did a lot of bus travel, which saved me quite a bit of money and let me go a lot more places. So Skyscanner is the first one that I would recommend. And then next I would recommend Go Euro, which is a travel website that gives you the train, bus, and flight prices for whatever weekend you're going and from like destination to destination. And so it would say your Megabus and Flixbus, which are like the two main big travel buses you can take that are terrible, but they get you where you need to go. And then it would give you your like Eurostar for the trains, and then it would give you all of the flight options. Europe does have Ryanair, EasyJet, and a couple of other really cheap flights, and then there's always like British Airways, those types of things that are going to be a little more expensive, but sometimes if you plan far out ahead you can get really good deals on them. So I use Ryanair a lot. Whenever I was traveling, I got a couple of flights for like $40 round trip, which was like, you know, super good to go from to a different country for that amount of money. I have a friend who got a $7 flight to Cologne in Germany, so like you can really get good deals if you're looking for them. Whenever I was planning on doing my travel and I was like doing all of the booking and everything, I would take a couple of weeks and look through everything and make sure that the flights didn't change, because sometimes prices for flights or buses would change. And I also use incognito mode on my Google Chrome whenever I was looking up these things, because if you look up the same flight pattern, the same bus route multiple times, the websites use those cookies and they remember that you did that, and the next time you look it up, the price is probably going to be higher, because they know that like, oh, you really want it now. They know you want to go, and so they know you're going to pay for it. And so I recommend using incognito mode because the cookies are not saved, and so they don't know that you're looking it up the first time, and so you can get the same price you initially saw, and sometimes it's even lower because prices fluctuate all the time. So that's what I recommend for booking your actual travel. Now, traveling by bus, I don't recommend doing it alone. I always traveled with my friends or with Jack whenever I used the bus system, because it is kind of scary. Sometimes there are people on there that really frighten you. Mostly Paris is where I was most scared. The bus station in Paris is not good. I have a friend who traveled there alone and I was very scared for her. She was fine, but it is not good. They don't have toilet seats in the bus station in Paris because someone stole them. I don't even know why. But there is no waiting room in the bus station in Paris, and so you just have to get on the bus as quickly as possible, and you don't really want to kind of stand around because it's not in a very good area. I was really glad to have Jack there. Not that I think he would really protect me all that much, but at least it looked like he could, you know. So you can get good deals on flights. I ended up paying £40, you know, $40 for a flight, whereas I paid £130 for a bus. So you just have to look and find the right time to do. You need to be very flexible when looking for where you're going to travel, and I recommend planning everything about a month in advance, because going 2 weeks in advance the prices are going to be more expensive. If you travel like plan it the week of, you probably can get some pretty good deals because they're trying to get rid of those tickets and those seats. But like if you're traveling, I don't recommend doing that. Maybe you're up to do that and you're a little risky, but I was not that risky, and I made sure everything was booked and set in stone at least a month before I left. Now, as for hotels, I actually did not stay in any hotels. I only used Airbnb, and it saved me a lot of money. Hotels in big cities where people go into it and like there are lots of tourists are expensive. Airbnbs though, not so much, because you can always stay slightly outside of town and it'll be way cheaper than any of the hotels you're going to find. And usually traveling the public transit system isn't that hard. You can figure it out. There are signs in English and everywhere that I went except for Poland. Don't recommend going to Poland, but there were signs everywhere that I went in English, and so I could always figure out where I needed to go. And if you have Google Maps, it will really get you through. Not Google Maps, Apple Maps is the way to go, but it will really get you through navigating the public transit system, and it makes it way easier. Also, you get to learn like a new public transit system, and so now I really feel like I can navigate in DC or New York or Chicago, anywhere. Like, I'm not from a big city, but now I really feel like I'm comfortable in a big city, and so that really taught me a lot. But yeah, you can always stay slightly outside the city and use public transit to get places. If you are living the high life, you can always use Uber to get places. Most cities do have it. The smaller towns I went to did not, but there's going to be always options for you. You don't have to stay within walking distance to everywhere you're going to go. It is nice, but you don't have to. You can save a lot of money and get to do more and experience more if you stay in Airbnbs that are slightly more inconvenient for you. Always check the reviews on your Airbnbs before you stay in them. I ended up staying in all really great ones. My hosts were wonderful and I really appreciated them. But just make sure you check your reviews to make sure they're clean, they don't have bed bugs, or that the hosts aren't really rude. Most Airbnb reviewers are really honest. I know I am. I usually write like a paragraph after my Airbnb reviews, and so I recommend just checking out, doing all your research, and doing a lot of research before you actually travel. Now, if you don't want to do your own traveling and make your own plans, there are other options. You can use websites that try and kind of put together like a little tour of the area for you, and they'll sometimes pay for transportation and hotels, and you just pay for your food. And so you can do tour guides like that. A website that I know a lot of my friends use is called Somewhere New, and they do tours and travel for young people, so people who are in college. A lot of study abroad students use them, and a lot of just like regular university students in Europe use them to travel, because they're fairly inexpensive and they give you everything that you need, including breakfast, and so you just pay for your other meals. And so I know a lot of people use those for weekend travel because they do use like typical university schedules, so you're going to leave on Friday night and you'll be back by Monday morning, and so you really aren't going to miss a lot of classes. So I recommend them very highly. My tour guide, whenever I was in London, just like for the first week of London, we had like a little tour, and my tour guide was from Somewhere New, and she was really nice, and she gave discounts, and if you sign up for their email subscription, they give out discounts on their trips all the time. So I really recommend that. And there are of course other travel websites you can use that like put together your trip for you if you want to do that, but I will say you can save money if you do it yourself. It's a little bit more nerve-wracking, and then you have to be a little more adventurous, and you're not going to get all the details that a tour guide would give you, but you do get to have your own freedom, and you get to choose exactly where you stay, where you eat, and what you're going to see during your trip, instead of having someone plan it for you. But those are my travel tips. Another budgeting and travel tip that I have for you is to get a rail card. A student rail card is of £30, and it saves you 1/3 on all of your trains that you're going to take within Europe, or not within Europe, within the UK. And so I traveled a lot to Reading every week. Pretty much every week basically I traveled to Reading, and it ended up being about $25 US, £18 every time round trip for me to take. But if I had not had a rail card, it would have been about £30, and then close to like $43 US every time round trip. And so I saved a lot of money. It was only 1/3 that it saved me, but I did it enough times that it made up for the money. I do have a friend who bought the rail card and only ended up traveling once, and so she didn't save any money. But if you plan on going a lot of places within the UK or just within England, I really recommend getting that rail card. I went to Southampton a few times to visit my family, and that alone was £30, but without the rail card it would have been around £50. So I really enjoyed that rail card, and I think it was a really good investment to make. But make sure that you know you want to travel around England if you're going to buy the rail card. Like, plan out those trips and know that, like, hey, this is where I'm going to save this money. If you're not going to save the money, then don't invest in it. But I do recommend it for those of you who plan on exploring a lot of England and just seeing a lot of the countryside. So next I want to talk about my regrets of my program. So I do regret a few things, and I wish I had done them differently. Of course, number one is going to be my budget. I wish I had budgeted and planned that a little differently. I wish I had known about the way I did everything the last month the whole time, so that I could have money left over, and then I could have kind of dedicated my money to the things that I really cared about instead of coffee. I spent a lot of money on coffee. So that's my number one regret, is not budgeting properly and not thinking through what I would be doing now in the month of January before I start my next adventure. Is not spending time and making more friends with people that are not American. So with AIFS, the program that I used, everyone that I lived around was American mostly, and so all my friends, I had 4 really good friends, and they are all from different states in America and the US, and I didn't really meet anyone from Britain or from other countries. I met people, but I didn't like get to know them very well and get to know their culture that well. Only had one class that really had anyone that wasn't American in it. Most of the classes I took were very popular for the study abroad students, and so I didn't know that, but that's what it ended up being like. And so I didn't really meet anyone other than like casual acquaintances from different countries and different cultures, and so I really regret not being able to like expand in that way. Now of course I like experience the other cultures whenever I traveled there, or like just like living in British culture was very different for me, but I didn't really get to know anyone personally who is from somewhere else. So I don't have a lot of other regrets. I really enjoyed my program, and I think if I could only say like one other regret is like drink less coffee, Lizzie, you didn't really need it, and drink less tea. Well, I don't know, I really enjoyed the tea, but less coffee, I didn't need it. I did though end up picking up a little travel cup. It's not this, but kind of like this, like a turbis mug. I didn't bring one with me, but I ended up buying one at a thrift store while I was there, and it saved me a lot of money on coffee and tea, because if you take those and you use reusable cups, Europe is very much better at recycling and reusing than we are, and so the Starbucks and the Pret a Manger there would give you 50p off of every drink that you use with a reusable cup, and so I really recommend investing in one of those if you're trying to save a little bit of cash just on your daily coffee. But also I recommend not getting daily coffee if you want to travel a lot. I wish I had known that. So next I want to talk about the things that I love and wish I could do again, and the things I would just like, I plan on doing again sometime later on in life. So the places that I traveled that were my favorite, I really love Scotland. It is beautiful. It is hecking cold, but Scotland is amazing. The mountains are where I recommend going. Edinburgh is a really great option to go to because it has a mountain to hike, and it has a really great view from the mountain, but it also has Old Town and New Town and lots of food options and a lot of like fun things. It's where Harry Potter was born, and so not like the actual Harry Potter, but like the books. J.K. Rowling wrote in lots of the coffee shops, and there's like 100 or more coffee shops in Edinburgh. So Edinburgh is like a great all-around town for like every type of traveler, every person's like wants. And so if you're only able to go to Scotland and see like one place, I really recommend Edinburgh. But Inverness and the Isle of Skye and seeing the Highlands and Nessie was also really amazing, and I want to do that again so bad. I really loved seeing the mountains, and I would love to go back again later when I'm 25 and I can rent the car, and I want to drive myself through there, and I can stop and hike up all the mountains. I gotta get in shape, but I would love to do that. Lots of people in Inverness stay in the town of Inverness in an Airbnb. There are lots of actual bed and breakfasts in Inverness just because it is very popular for hikers to come stay, and then they drive off in their cars and hike up the mountains and see all the pretty views, and then they come back to Inverness at night. So I really recommend doing that, and I cannot wait to go back and do that. So those are my favorite places that I traveled. Paris and Rome were beautiful, of course, and I really enjoyed Greece when I went with my mom, but I wish I could go to the Greek islands instead of Athens. Athens is kind of dirty, cool for a day, but then the rest of Greece is probably a lot better. Athens is also a little corrupt, so be careful when you're there. Those are the places that I would travel to again. A place I would not travel to again is Poland. I only had about 24 hours in Warsaw, and it was just to see Ed Sheeran, but we also planned on doing other things and seeing the old town of Poland, and I did not get to do that because I could not find where it was or how to navigate the transit system. It was my first time in a non-English speaking country though, so maybe I would be better at it now, but while I was there it was a little traumatizing because we could not find the bus to get to our Airbnb, but it's okay, we made it through. But I would not recommend Poland if you're not an experienced traveler. You need to be there with someone either who knows the lay of the land, or you have experienced a lot of public transit and you know how to navigate your way around in a place that doesn't speak your language. Alright guys, I think that is all that I have to say about my study abroad experience. I hope you learned a little something, and if not, you heard me ramble for forever. You're welcome. Thanks for sticking around, and I will see you guys soon as I start my journey for the Disney College program.